I heard, across a moonlit sea, the old voice warning me. Beware, beware, the daughter of the sea. Beware, beware of me.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. Rexxar versus Jaina Proudmoore, the Daughter of the Sea versus the Champion of the Horde. That was a story that was hinted at from the very start of Battle for Azeroth, and it was a story that we'll sadly never get to see. So today, I'll go ahead and go over the bits and pieces to how it all started, to how it all ended, and how it could have played out. So, without further delay, let's get this started with how it all began. During the founding of Durotar, Rexxar had happened upon a human invasion led by none other than Jaina Proudmoore's father, First Admiral Dalen Proudmoore. You see, Dalen had a very unhinged anger towards the orcs as they had killed his son during the Second War, and he would never see the orcs as people, and he would never let them rest, nor have their own kingdom for what they did. Jaina, at this time, had seen the orcs as more than just monsters and had fought side by side with them during the battle against the Burning Legion at Mount Hyjal. And she tried to speak out against further bloodshed, but it would fall on deaf ears with her father.
You have always been naive, my daughter. You aren't old enough to remember what these monsters did to our homeland. The orcs and their kin cannot be trusted. They must be exterminated like the mongrels they are.
I won't let you do it, Father. You don't understand.
I understand more than you suspect, my dear. Perhaps in time you will too. Seize them all!
Without any other course of action, Jaina stood aside and let the Horde do what they had to do. Rexxar slayed Dalen Proudmoore and announced that the war between them was over. Through her actions, Jaina would be dubbed the Daughter of the Sea and portrayed as a betrayer of their leader and a lover for orcs. Meanwhile, Rexxar would be named the Horde's champion and would offer his aid to the Horde and its people whenever it was needed. Many years would pass long after the death of Dalen Proudmoore, and her father's words on the Horde would come true. The savage and bloodthirsty side of the Horde would remerge under Garrosh Hellscream, who time and time again proved to Jaina just how lost the Horde had become. Theramore would be bombarded with a destructive bomb. Traitors from her own ranks in the Kirin Tor would backstab her in favor of Garrosh. And even long after Garrosh's tyranny ended, Sylvanas Windrunner, the new war chief, would allow her friend Varian to die to demons, and Toadassil to burn down with innocents inside. Something she had warned the Alliance about. If left unchecked, the Horde in Jaina's eyes would only cause more destruction. It was no longer a band of people she could stand next to. It was a band of monsters who had to be put down. Anduin Wrynn, king of the Alliance, while all the more optimistic for peace than Jaina was now, would request that Jaina be the one to help bring the Koltiran naval fleet back into the Alliance. Something that was not an easy feat for Jaina, as she was still haunted by her father's ghost. She believed now that her father was right, and what she had done to him was unforgivable.
Your loving mother will never forgive you, murderer.
Arriving in Kul Tiras, they did not greet Jaina with open arms, nor did they respect her wishes to join the Alliance. Instead, they would have her arrested and cast aside. Jaina's own mother disowned her and let her friend Ashvane do whatever she wishes to the woman responsible for the death of Dalen, and several others. While Jaina was placed in a realm called Thros by Ashbane and her minions, the Alliance worked at proving to Kul Tiras that they were worthy allies, and that they could unite against the Horde and end this war. Ashbane even proved to be a traitor to all of Kul Tiras, and had her own agendas. After several of these endeavors, Catherine Proudmoore realized her mistake in banishing Jaina. She herself would find her daughter in the realm and consult her rather than belittle her. Catherine saw for herself all the torments her daughter had been through and urged her to forgive herself and her father. Jaina and Catherine came out of the realm stronger and more united than ever. Lady Ashvane at this time was now coming with an army at her disposal, and she would do anything to take her rightful place as the master of all of Kul Tiras. Unfortunately for Priscilla, Jaina Proudmoore had the means to summon the Lost Fleet, forcing Ashvane to surrender and was imprisoned within Tol Dagor. Catherine had full confidence in Jaina's abilities and leadership, dubbing Jaina the new Lord Admiral in her place. Meanwhile, Rexxar had finally returned to the Horde after years of absence. In Rexxar's travel, he reunited with his father, Leorox, and his clan, the Mok'Nathal. He joined the Unseen Path to bring a fight to the Burning Legion. And now, he was here to fight back the Alliance within Kul Tiras. Rexxar would be in charge of the strongest Horde outpost in Stormsong Valley. Rexxar's own motivations are mainly clouded with a promise to Thrall, but also a quest to bring down Jaina Proudmoore, who in Rexxar's eyes was just another Dalen, much to his dismay, claiming she had gone too far and that he would bring her down or die trying. Through the acts of war, Rexxar would kill many Kul Tirans, assist in recruiting a Tide Sage, who would then be raised and forsaken, whom he would later call his friend. And he would free Priscilla Ashvane from her prison with the help of Waltois.
You only broke me out of that cell because you need something from me.
Very perceptive, Lady Ashvane. I believe we have mutual interests to discuss.
Seems we need to find our own way back.
Such is the way of things. This war has taken many turns. It seems to me our current path is perilous.
Indeed, my friend. The Horde is at a crossroads once again.
While the Alliance was busy recruiting the Kul Tirans, the Horde was busy recruiting the Zandalari. Both sides were successful, but the Alliance had managed to plant bombs on the Zandalari's fleet and destroy them. Jaina leading the assault would have the Alliance push forward to the city. Once the capital was raided, they would try to get King Rastakhan to surrender, but to no avail, forcing them to end Rastakhan's reign, and further encouraging the Zandalari to join hands with the Horde and bring the Alliance down. Jaina was the main face of this besiegement, and pushed Solange down a very similar path that Jaina was on, wanting vengeance for her dead father. With the Zandalari fleet destroyed and Rastakhan dead, Sylvanas Windrunner turned her attention to another prize, the deceased body of Derek Proudmoore, whom she would raise and use to kill the Proudmoores in cold blood. Bane Bloodhoof would oppose this, and with the aid of Thomas Zelling, would reunite brother and sister, no longer bound to the Banshee's will. Jaina's once dark belief that the Horde was irredeemable was shaken by Bane's actions, proving once again that there was good within the Horde.
Bane! Thank you.
But consequences would be met with this, as Thomas Zelling would be killed and Bane would be arrested. Rexxar vowed that others would learn of what Sylvanas had done, likely telling Saurfang of the news that transpired in secret. Hostilities between the Horde and Jaina would begin to dim, as Thrall, Varrock, Shah, and her would free Bane from his execution in the Underhold. Once again, Jaina would find herself alongside members of the Horde who valued honor and comradeship, further pushing away her father's perspectives once again. Even at Ajara's own palace and kingdom, she found herself siding alongside Lor'themar Therin to bring down Queen Ajara. And when the time came to band against Sylvanas Windrunner, both Rexxar and Jaina stood side by side under Saurfang's cause. Never would the Daughter of the Sea or the Champion of the Horde come to blows. As you can tell, the narrative never had Rexxar and Jaina fight one another, or even confront each other. It seemed as if they were building up this clash between these two beloved characters, but it never happened. Rexxar was definitely the one who triggered this side of Jaina, not as much as Garrosh did, but he was the one who killed Dalen, and ultimately, Jaina's perspective there for a little bit was to follow in her father's footsteps, to bring an end to the Horde. It didn't help that Rexxar returned only to bring more bloodshed too, so had the two ever met, I do think it would eventually lead to a fight, especially if Jaina sought to prove herself to her people, who still to this day villainize Rexxar most of all. The scenario I would have Rexxar be put in the Battle of Dazar'alor to aid in the final fight against Jaina, alongside the many heroes of the Horde, such as Talanji, Rokon, and Nathaniel, I guess. I would have Rexxar take on a more imperative and huge role in the story, while also including the things that have happened so far. Here, I would have had the two have a heart-to-heart, so to speak, spilling out their guts to each other while they did battle. I do think that at this time, Rexxar would try to convince Jaina to stop in her assault on the Horde, and for her to not become another tragedy like Dalen. I think Rexxar is a perfect representation of someone who embodies the wrath of those Jaina has hurt in turn. Jaina is definitely less deserving of wrath than others, but there are those that she has hurt, and I don't think Rexxar would truly want to kill her for those actions, unless there truly was no other way. As even with Dalen, Rexxar advocated to surrender and never belittled him, and even suggested Jaina all those years ago to remember him as an honorable warrior. Ultimately, this fight could lead to either Jaina's staff being broken, or Misha's demise, or, in a more somber note, Rexxar's own death, either pushing Jaina further down a darker path, or realizing just how far she's fallen. Or it could merely end in a draw, and would leave the two a lot to think about exactly with what they're doing in their factions and with their people. I'm all for development for Rexxar, as he was severely needing it at this time. One of the things that always bothered me was the reason Rexxar came back in the first place. Who were the ones that Jaina had killed that set Rexxar off so much? I have no doubts Jaina has killed Horde during the 4-4, but nothing to the degree that would get Rexxar this angry. My belief was always that Sylvanas lied to Rexxar, and this could have been an interesting scenario to further insight and infighting between Rexxar and Sylvanas that was desperately needed. The point being, while I would have loved to have seen a matchup between these two, it's probably a good thing we never did see it, as Rexxar more than likely would have lost, died, or something. We'll never know truly why this fight didn't happen though, and while I have a few guesses as to why it didn't, but at the end of the day, it didn't happen, and truth be told, I am somewhat glad it didn't. As much as I like Rexxar, his feats of strength nor power level, as it were, are nowhere close to Jaina is currently. I'm not saying he wouldn't put up a fight, nor couldn't defeat her by unorthodox means, but I do think that Jaina overall has the better chance at winning against Rexxar. But it was never really about who would win in the fight, it was more of the fact that this did feel slightly built up to, and I do wish we got to see a glimmer of it in the story. I think that what I would have appreciated more from this is a stay a while and listen between Rexxar and Jaina at Razor Hill just before Sarfing initiated the Makara, where they could have had a chit-chat. That would have been cool. I still am very unsure on where Rexxar and Jaina's stand is right now, and it's always possible that they could dig this sort of thing or this sort of stuff later in a novel or a different expansion. But what do you guys think? Would you have liked to see Rexxar and Jaina throw down, or are you happy with what we got in the story? Let me know down below. You can follow me on all sorts of other social media in the description, or you can support me on Patreon, like these amazing folks here. But until next time, friends, see ya!